Shalom. Call hello, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakah Hakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. The would-be judges, the 144,000, the tabernacle of David, right? According to Amos 9 and 11 and many other scriptures. All right, who is to be the ruling class government here on earth in the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven will be an earthly realm. As it tells you in Revelation, he saw a new heaven and a new earth. All right, the new rulership. The tabernacle of David will be the new ruling class government, which will rule over all the other nations of mankind forever and ever. All right, on earth as it is in heaven. The laws of heaven will be applied on earth as it is in heaven by the Israelites, who primarily make up the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and the rest of the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth among the heathen nations that have the appearance of the heathen nations. The black-only narrative is a lie, whether it's coming from Esau or whether it's coming from unlearned, illiterate Jake. All right? The Israelites cannot be identified by skin color alone after the scattering, after this diaspora. Hence the reason why the scriptures tell you that the angels will come to separate the wheat from the tares in Matthew. All right? And to the few Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago. There are lessons within lessons. My opening is a lesson within itself. This is copyright disclaimers under Section 107 of Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Okay, so I have 4 precepts that I wrote down prior to even turning this camera on after looking at all the evidences and the different video shorts that I got. I got one from our beloved elder apostle and leader, Apostle Ramlab. And I got one, and then one from April O'Neil, my undercover journalist. And they were both had to do with this video with Tucker Carlson. He sent me a portion of it, and so did she. All right. So it's the spirit that this must come out. Okay. So we're going to talk about the disingenuousness of Mike Huckabee and of Edomites in general and their division. So let's start first with actually, I got 2 from Apostle Ramlab, and they're bangers, man. Esau is exposed, bro. If this type of information is floating around the internet, it's completely destroying and annihilating the hollow hoax and the fake J-ish narrative of everything that happened in World War II and after. Okay, and these are coming from their own people and their own resources. Especially when you consider something called the lecture report, which was a German scientist who did, an investigation on a certain event that happened in World War II, supposedly to the little hats, to the J-is community, to the Khazar deniers. All right, and the evidences completely annihilate the narrative that they've pushed. Hence the reason why they make laws. Okay. And we're gonna watch Tucker Carlson completely annihilate them with their own pseudoscience with DNA, all right? Because remember, DNA can and has been falsified, all right? Can and has been falsified. So they falsified DNA to prove, to try to support pseudoscience. And then flip side of it, that DNA can also be used truthfully and scientifically to disprove lies. So now, there is a reason why it is unlawful in the land of Israel to take DNA tests. That's a problem. And once that, becomes mainstream or gets, becomes well known, they got a problem. All right. Especially as they continue to go around the world pushing this chosen people and all this other things, which neither history, relics, or scripture lines up with them being the chosen at all. But them being the Edomites who hijacked, all right, the Israelite heritage and culture, well, they line up perfectly with that. So, without any further ado, let's play this first part of this.
Why do you expect me to have knowledge of something like that?
Well, because you attacked me personally for suggesting that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to Mossad, just as like a man and a father and a Christian. How could you resist saying, like, were you on Pedo Island with Jeffrey Epstein? Well, there is a charged child molester.
But I'm saying, if you are very involved in the details of this,
I'm not.
And you think it's the U.S. government that's hiding and shielding somebody, then bring it up to the people that
I don't think that. I know it.
Ooh, you don't think that?
Tucker Carlson.
And you can say what you want to, man. This chick right here is a ninja woman. All right. That chick right there, she's not what she appears to be if you're in the spirit, man. All right, but this is Mark 3:23. And he called them unto him and said unto them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but have an end. And right here, you see Satan, the adversary, two Edomite men, going to war publicly, both exposing different sides. One trying to defend a lie, and the other one in that Psalm 64 spirit, being Tucker Carlson here. He's in Psalm 64:8 spirit. Matter of fact, let's get it. Like I said, I wrote down 4 scriptures. Mark was one of them. This was not. All right. And I figured, well, whatever the spirit gives me or puts on my spirit, I'll bring it out. But Psalm 64:8 reads, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. So while Tucker Carlson is proving Huckabee to be a liar and being very disingenuous, let's look that up. He's also fulfilling scripture. So this is the definition of disingenuous from AI. And it reads, disingenuous describes speech, behavior, or people that are insincere, calculating, or slightly dishonest, often pretending to be innocent, naive, or unaware that they actually are. It implies a deliberate and false appearance of frankness to hide what? Real motives. Esau Edom does this in the media daily, in the news daily. All right? So now that we got that, let me go to these receipts that I got from the apostle and from the secret journalist. So let's go to hers first. And here we go. And this one is 3 minutes and 50. So it's 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 54 seconds. So I'm going to let me move my coffee there. All right. And so because I'm having a lower back issue right now, and so I can't really put it into focus. But what I'm playing is a portion of this video that's not played. So these very 2 men, the same 2 men that you see on the screen, this is these 2. This is a portion of the this video that's not shown in the one that's on the screen. You can see the name. This is the Young Turks. Tucker Shreds Huckabee's meeting with U.S. trader for Israel, all right, the Young Turks. So this is from this interview that I'm playing, just so you know. So you can go and watch, find this whole interview to get this. So let me bring it back up, because normally I would lean forward and put it in focus, but my back is on fire right now, my lower back. It's feeling better than it was, so it's getting there, but I'm not gonna torture myself. But here we go.
I'm totally unable to process what you're trying to get at.
There would be a lot of places that are now countries that this.
Wait, he said he's totally unable to process what he's asking him. That, one more time. Disingenuous describes speech, behavior, or people that are insincere, calculating. He's being very dishonestly calculating right now. Mike Huckabee. I believe his name is Mike Huckabee. His last name is definitely Huckabee. I think it's Mike. But here we go. So, let's start that again.
Here. I'm just totally unable to process what you're trying to get at.
There would be a lot of places that are now countries that
This particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this, because you have
Go
said
ahead.
it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is.
Now remember, Israel is a people before it's a place. All right? And what Tucker Carlson is challenging the narrative that Bibi Netanyahu and the Israelis are the actual physical people that the Bible speaks of. That's what this debate is happening right now.
Entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave.
Let's stop right there. Here's a map of Western Asia. Matter of fact, I don't want to do that. Let me just pull it up. I have the map in my hand. But what they refer to as the Middle East, the Levant, is Western Asia. Always has been. They're calling it the Middle East to try to create some new racial narrative and makeup. All right? The portion of the world that they refer to as the Middle East and Europe sits in Asia. It is Western Asia. The other end, where China, Japan, Russia is, Korea, North Korea, that's the Far East. All right? The other end of Asia is Europe and the so-called Middle East. All right? That's why they call it Eurasia. It's all Asia. There's only 6 continents, not 7. See, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is a profound liar, and they teach their lies. Okay? I want to see if I can pull that map up, if it'll pop up. Asia. Oh, shit. Didn't want to do that.
Is a charged child molester.
But I'm saying, if you are.
I did not mean to do that. Let's put it back up.
Why do you expect me to have knowledge?
So, Salakia, got that back. Okay. Now, let's go here. Let's go. So, forgive me for a second. Let's see if my map pops up now. Oh, come on, man. All right. There it is. There she is. Let's see if we can get that on screen. All right. There it is. There's a map of Asia. You can literally see it. Okay. It's showing you Asia. There's no separation. Just because they colored the part of Eurasia yellow, you can walk from Siberia right into Ukraine, right into Belarus. There's no separation, one continent. And when it's showing you Asia, it's showing you that Saudi Arabia, Israel, Yemen, United Emirates, Iran, Turkey is Western Asia. You see that? That is an actual map of Asia, a teacher's guide. Okay? So, you know, we have to show our receipts. So what they've lied. So Europe is not another continent. It's a part of Asia. There are 6 continents. There's even a scripture that tells you about the 6 parts of the earth. All right. The 7th part is the waters, the oceans. Okay. So everything that comes out of this man's mouth is a lie. All right. So now that we've established that, you know, so this is the face of the man that's lying. And the face of the and the face of the liars, period.
That land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all. The entirety of the world, there are about 16 million Jews total. And 8 million of them live here. The rest live mostly in New York or South Florida and a few other places.
Okay.
So this is a small population of people. They have connection to this land historically, biblically.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
If
Do they?
Davey's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense
ancestrally, but
how do we know
ancestrally,
that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
do you?
He doesn't. So no one does. That's the point.
But
So
if
how do
there
we
is-
know that he
but
has any
if they
connection
are
to this land at
Jewish,
all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language,
But
the
he
Bible,
doesn't-
the land,
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So on what basis does he have a right
very
to be
much
here?
speaks the language. He has fought for the land. His family has
I
fought
feel
for
like
the
you're
land.
dodging a
No, I'm not
very
dodging,
obvious
guys.
question, which is where does
He's dodging it, and then he doesn't speak the language. They speak the Yiddish. They speak the New Speak. They speak the Aram. They use the Aramaic form. The house of Judah. All right. The kingdom of Judah, which made up 3 tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. They never used the Assyrian script. The relics in the history shows you that they used the ancient Paleo Hebrew. All right. What they're using right now, let me show you the receipt. They're speaking the Yiddish written with Hebrew characters, and not even real Hebrew characters, but Assyrian script characters. All right. They're using the Assyrian script. They're using this script. And this is not ancient Hebrew. The Hebrews didn't use the Assyrian script. The Assyrian script was used when they went into captivity in Assyria. What was used by the ancient Israelites was actually this form of Hebrew. All right? The ancient Paleo. The Phoenician script. All right? That was used. This form of Hebrew, all right, is an afterthought. Let me bring it up again. This is an afterthought attached to, and what they did was the Ben Eliezer Ben Yehudi, all right. He took this form of Assyrian script and attached it to the Yiddish language. All right. And so it's a Yiddish Slavic, semi-Hebrew language written in Assyrian characters. All right. Spoken by the Jays. So hold on and let me prove that. Let me give you the definition of that from the Winston Simplified Dictionary, 1931, with biblical references. And here it is. All right. Yiddish. German Jewish. Jew, a kind of, remember, Jew is a hijack for Israelite. Israeli is a hijack for Israelite. They're not the people. It says, a kind of mixed German and Hebrew language spoken by the Jews, written or printed in Hebrew characters. Jewish, that's where the suffix ish, you got to understand. Ish means to be like. They tell you who they are in the very word that they use to describe themselves. They tell you that they're Jewish. You know, we're kind of like the Jews, but we're not. And there was a time when they admitted to their conversion, and all of a sudden in the 1860s, they started saying that they were the actual people, and they're not. And as many references from their own rabbis, from their own educators, you know, that tell you that they're converts, that they're not the actual bloodline people. You know, from their own almanacs and encyclopedias and things of that nature. All right. Matter of fact, now that I said it, I gotta get it. I always want to try to fly through these and make them fast, but you know, as information pours out, I guess you just can't rush through it. You can't rush through the spirit. But these are my receipt folder, and these are important because it tells you that they're Edomite J-ish. The Edomites begin to call themselves, the Edomite Jews begin to call themselves Hebrews and Israelites in 1860, and this is from their own resources. Encyclopedia Judaica, 1971, volume 10, all right, volume 10, and section 23. Next source, and there are many more. These are just two that I decided to keep. Esau Edom is modern Jewry, 1925, Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 5, page 41. They are not Israel or Judah. So it's the evidence, just because you choose to look the other way, Mike Huckabee, and all of the world and all of Judaism today, when the receipts and the evidence are presented, doesn't make it not so. All right, you try to convince the people, you know, that up is down and down is up. You know, you even carved up Asia and called a portion of it the Middle East, which is in your own resources show you that the Middle East is Asia. It sits in Asia. There's no such thing as a Middle East. What they call this the Middle East is that you had the East India shipping company, which was in Britain. All right, this area right here was the halfway point between it and India. That's why they started calling it the Middle East. It was the midway point. And it was eastward from Britain. They started saying Mid-East. It was a midway between India and Britain. That's how it got the name. In case you didn't know, now you know. Okay? So now, let's go to the portion of the video, because I got different portions of it. Now I'm going to go to the portion that Apostle Ramlab sent me. And this is quite shameful. You talking about some shameful spewing. Same interview.
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean, maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained.
Yeah, let's do that publicly.
And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that.
Jewish community, APAC,
ADL. The
ADL.
theology that you've just explained to me.
Would we do that all over the world?
Well,
and everybody
this is the only country in the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out?
You hear this hypocrite? When the scriptures said that the Israelites were scattered to all people, four corners of the earth. So why don't you do DNA to see? And all of a sudden he starts talking about conversions. They're all converts, these Edomites.
Your standards, they can't live here.
No,
because
you
you just
never
told
said
me that they have a right to live here because God gave them
Wait,
the
I gotta
land
play
because
it again.
Abram's descendants are, and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you've just explained to me,
Would we do that all over the world?
well,
And everybody
this is
would-
the
would
only
would
country in
Brits-
the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out?
By your standards,
That
they
will be
can't live
every
here.
JS person
Not
for the
just
most part.
No,
that they have a right to live here because God gave them the land because they're the descendants of Abram.
They're the descendants of Abraham. But if they're the spiritual descendants of Abraham and they've now decided that they're converting to Judaism, then do they have a right to live in Israel?
Since you began this conversation by asking me, did I think they had a right to come here?
Yeah, that's
And
what
my question
Zionism is.
was, on what basis do they have the right? And
And
you
I'm trying
said
to-
because God granted it to
Yeah,
them.
and I also said because that there should be a land where Jews could live in peace and safety.
And I asked you what a Jew was, and you couldn't answer it. You
No, I
said
didn't. I didn't.
it partly is religious, but doesn't have to be. It's partly genetic, but it doesn't have to be. And so that you can see why I'm.
I think I was very clear.
Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense?
ancestrally- but
How do we know
ancestrally-
that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. So no one does. That's the point.
But
So
if
how do
there
we
is-
know that he
but
has any
if they
connection
are
to this land at
Jewish,
all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language, the
But he
Bible,
doesn't-
the land,
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't.
And let's make it clear. Judaism is not biblical. Judaism follows the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud. They do not follow the Holy Scriptures. They do not follow the Torah and the Tanakh at all. In the Torah, in Isaiah 34 and 16, it tells you clearly that there is no other book to mate with the Bible. All right? It's common knowledge that in order to be a rabbi, you must have a thorough education in the Talmud. You must have mastery of the Talmud, which is the primary, all right, the primary source and behind Judaism, not the Bible. The Bible actually condemns Judaism. The Bible condemns the Talmud and any other book. Okay? Period.
Practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who, through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European.
Ooh-wee.
How does that work?
So, by Esau's own theology, they've basically canceled out the fact that any Israeli today could possibly be an Israelite. And him speaking up, he just proved it. Talking about conversions, and they may not have family lines and bloodlines, but yet you're killing and murdering and exterminating people off the land, all right, for the people who are supposed to be chosen, but you're readily admitting that you don't have blood ties. Yeah, let's throw some more salt in this wound. All right? Let's throw some more salt in this wound. Let's go to this one now. This is another one that came from Apostle Ram Lab. And this is the scientific receipts now. You have science and then you have pseudoscience. This is one of those real science things, okay? And it does not go in the favor of the events that clearly are very questionable events that took place in World War II to the J-ish community. Here we go.
They murdered 1 million people in Auschwitz using poison gas. Why is there no trace of that gas in the buildings of Auschwitz today? And none of us none of us historians thought of demanding that there should be tests carried out on the fabric of the gas chambers at Auschwitz. The buildings survived partly. They're in ruins, some of them. Others are more or less intact. Eventually, in 1988, as part of this Canadian trial that I mentioned, the case against Ernst Zundel, the defense lawyers decided to send an expert in gas chambers over to Auschwitz. So this expert in gas chambers, a man called Fred Leuchter, was sent over to Auschwitz to test the gas chambers of the Nazi concentration camp. Would these gas chambers work? Is there any trace of their having been used as gas chambers? Is there any residue of cyanide gas in the walls? All the obvious questions. And he came back and he wrote an affidavit for the court, which we eventually published as the Leuchter Report. The forensic tests carried out on the 48 samples that he brought back to the United States, bits of brickwork that he took out of the walls, and submitted to the forensic laboratories in Cornell University to have tests carried out.
Okay.
And the result was that in 47 of the 48 samples, there wasn't the slightest significant trace of cyanide compound.
That's a
the
problem.
48th sample, there were colossal traces of cyanide. What is the explanation of that result? Well, the answer is in that sample, he had taken out of a little gas chamber that was used for disinfesting clothing.
Uh-oh.
The mice and the vermin and the prisoners' clothing. The clothing was stuffed into this little gas chamber, which looked like a gas chamber. He got a steel door with a racks rather like a dry cleaners for wheeling clothing in and out, and he took that sample out of that brickwork. It's significant because all our opponents have said we don't expect to find cyanide in the brickwork after 50 years. How absurd. How ludicrous. After 50 years of wind and rain, you're not going to find cyanide compounds, residue of a gas in the brickwork. And the answer is you do. And the proof of that answer is, in fact, the walls of that little gas chamber were so soaked in cyanide compounds that they'd turned blue. Got photographs of it here. What those blue walls look like. You can see here. Color photographs of the little gas chamber in Auschwitz showing the blue stain on the walls where the cyanide has seeped through the brickwork. A young 28-year-old German chemist, a research chemist working at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. The Max Planck Institute is one of the most prestigious bodies with the kind of reputation of the National Institutes of Health here in Bethesda, Maryland. He decided to write his dissertation on that one subject, the permanence of cyanide compounds in brickwork. And having written his dissertation, he then allowed it to be circulated in printed form to 2,000 professors of chemistry at universities who confirmed that what he'd written was true. Too late, the national enemy spotted what he did, and they had him dismissed from his position at the Max Planck Institute. The letters have now been published where they put pressure on the Max Planck Institute for him to be dismissed, allowing his scientific report, his dissertation, to be published. Under the German laws for the suppression of free speech, he had infringed against those laws and he's now been sent to prison for 14 months for allowing his chemical results to be circulated in Germany.
So how dare you tell the truth? You're going to jail. And that's what it is. See, when it comes to these Edomites, especially the Israeli ones that refer to themselves as the chosen when they're not, when they're actually Edomites, when you produce evidences that prove their lie, instead of them coming with the counter thing, because it cannot, they simply make laws to ban the truth from coming out. They don't prevent, or they don't allow evidences to be brought forth to prove. The same way that they're keeping all the evidences of all the crimes committed against humanity and children through all the other people, the accomplices that help, J.E. and Ghislaine, the Jeffrey files and Ghislaine, okay, that help them, all the other people, the thousands of people who were involved with that, to let them walk. And to let them continue to push to the world this false narrative that they are the seed of Jacob when they are actually the seed of Esau, Jacob's brother. Let's get a couple more scriptures and shut this down, man. This is Deuteronomy 33 and 29. Because they don't dwell in safety and peace and safety alone. Mike Huckabee, you piece of shit lying. Well, what if they converted and they can't shut your ass up? This is Deuteronomy 33 and 28. Israel shall then dwell in peace and safety alone. They are not, and they haven't been since they went over there because they're not the people. The fountain of Jacob shall be upon the land of corn and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew. So when the real Israelites go back to the land of Israel, there will be peace on earth. No more wars. It's been more wars since those people went over there because they fulfilled the prophecy of Esau taking the land. Ezekiel 35, 2 and 35 and 2, 35. Oh no, hold on. Is it 36 and 5 and 36 and 2? Yeah. It said, okay, so Deuteronomy 33 and 29. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahweh, the shield of thy help, and who is the soul of thy excellency, and thy enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. Esau, Edom, our enemy, is being found a liar. His own evidence is proving them to be liars. And because the JS do control the mainstream media, that's not anti-semantics or any fucking thing else. They've kept this evidence from being presented in the courts being the media itself, so that the world could see. See, the media puts them in if you looked at the media as a courthouse, they're preventing the evidences that prove them. Same thing with the Jeffrey files from being presented to the court. Okay? Ezekiel, let's go to it since I mentioned it. I think it's Ezekiel 36 and 5. Yeah, 36, 2 and 5. Thus saith the Lord, because the enemy hath said against you, aha! Just like the rabbis still say to this day. Even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Ezekiel 36 and 5. Therefore thus saith the Lord, power surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, against all of Idumea, the Edomites, which I have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. Israel was casted out for a prey, and the Idumeans, the Edomites, have appointed the land of Israel into their possession and are running around the world today claiming that they're Jacob when they're actually Esau, Jacob's brother. Okay? This is just more of that shameful spewing upon their glory. As a matter of fact, let's get it. Habakkuk 2 and 16. And it reads, thou art filled with shameful glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be upon thy glory. That's it for you red, you red ass Edomites, just like the Bible describes you. All right, Mike Huckabee is wearing a white shirt, and look at his skin. He's pink. He's reddish. All right, they came out red all over. And there he is. He's red all over. He's not white. All right? That's another pseudoscience lie. White and black. White people are red. Black people are brown. Dummies. One last scripture. 2 Ezra 6:27. And it reads, for evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which have been so long without fruit shall be declared. Call halal Yahweh Basham Awashai Bahasham Rakah Kwadash Kwam Yasarala Abad Babal.